Welcome. I am here with my friend, brother from another mother, lifestyle expert and fitness expert, Dai Manuel. Dai, thanks so much for being.
Great to be here, brother. Good to see
So,
you. You're looking great.
thank you. I have partly you to thank for that. So we're gonna maybe end up talking about some of those details.
For sure.
First, to level set. This is part of a project that I'm doing all year long and probably even after that. And it's
Mhm.
called the Fulfillment Project. And every
Mm.
month in the year, we're going to be concentrating on one of the categories that we get to live in our lives. And this month, January, what a great month to focus on fitness,
Yeah, why not?
specifically our relationship with our physical health. So,
Yeah.
it was a no-brainer for me to ask you if you'd spend some time with me
Mm.
and for the benefit of our community to talk one-on-one about fitness, your relationship with your physical self.
Mm.
And fitness is one of these things that we call a pervasive category, right? And so pervasive means that it influences everything else in our lives.
Mm.
We might not think fitness is a top priority until it's gone. If our physical health is gone, we're laid up in bed and all of a sudden, right, everything else goes away. So I just had the privilege of going through one of your signature programs called the Merge 60. And
Yeah.
that's allowed me to actually come at this interview with some very, very, not only learnings, but some really
Mm.
conscious questions that I
Good.
wanted to ask you about in relation to our physical health. So,
Love it.
the
Love
three
it.
things that I want to cover in this conversation are sleep and recovery,
Mm.
nutrition or fuel,
Yep.
and finally, strain. I'm going to call it strain
Mm.
because
Yeah.
specifically I have some like questions around strain, like good or bad. So, starting with sleep and recovery,
Mm.
it's pretty basic concept. We need sleep.
Yep.
I was hoping that you could maybe spend some words about like this whole idea of why. Why
Mm.
is recovery such an essential part to how we are relating with our body, growing with our body? Let's talk about rest and recovery.
Well, I think it's important to reference pacing. I mean, pacing in anything in life is important, right? Pacing. Just what do we mean by pacing? Well, the speed at which we go and we do the things that we do and strive for the things that we strive for, especially, time of year right now, it's January. A lot of people are talking about New Year's resolutions, right? Or maybe some solutions that they want to lean into. But regardless, it's important to start plotting a course. But when we plot a course, we don't always have the luxury of, a Google Maps that ties into all the traffic and lets us know, or like Waze, right? Waze is also a great one, right? Because it's all
Mhm.
user generated saying, oh, don't go down there, there's a speed trap, or don't go over there, they got a detour. That's great. And I mean, I guess, we'll get to this point, but we'll be able to talk a little bit about these little things on our wrist. You have a whoop band, I have a whoop band. Having these abilities to tap into some of these biometrics gives us an opportunity to be more conscious with the decisions and the actions that we take as it relates to our health, our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health, spiritual health. I mean, as you said, it's a pervasive category. So as much as we talk about fitness, there's physical fitness, and that's sort of what everyone automatically goes to when they hear the term fitness. But we can be fit from a wealth standpoint. We can be fit from a psychological standpoint. We can be fit from an emotional or spiritual standpoint. So, fitness is often this gauge through which we can see a lot of things and also give ourselves an idea of where do we land? How resilient are we to stress, to overwhelm, to the things that push back on us in life and bring about challenges. And here's the thing, and this is to sort of tie it up in a nice little bow. This idea of rest and recovery is so critical because it's the opportunity for our bodies to recharge. For those that have an electric vehicle, I think this is a great example. You know, you're going to drive that thing and it's going to just have that little battery meter and it just keeps going down and down and down. And eventually you get to a point, it's going to prompt you and say, yo, we need some juice, man. You better plug me in. Well, our bodies go through similar things. And whether we talk about sleep, circadian rhythms, just it used to be way less complicated, to be honest with you, Maurice, because we didn't have so many things pulling at our attention and affecting just the way our bodies sleep. I mean, we'll get into that a little bit later, but bottom line, rest and recovery are critical if you want to see certain things in your life change. Because if you're not well rested mentally, you're going to be on the verge of probably making poor decisions, making emotionally driven decisions that maybe don't have any logic to them. And beyond that, we start to realize that we just don't have the energy to continue to do the things that maybe once we were passionate about.
Hmm.
That
Okay.
thing that we love doing all of a sudden is like, oh gosh, I don't really like doing this anymore. You start to resent the thing that you used to love. And this is often a loose connection to what's referred to as burnout. And we might go there today, we might not, but if you ever feel like you're falling out of love with your passions in life or your career or certain things that you really found a lot of fulfillment from, and all of a sudden you're not finding it fulfilling, you could be on the verge of burnout, if not already burnt out. And there's a whole series of things that we can talk about that relates to that. So yeah, that's where rest and recovery come in. Okay.
Okay, perfect, perfect. I threw up. If you end up watching this, if you're listening, then you won't be able to see this, but I've thrown up a slide that just I
I like
think
it.
kind of
I like it.
captures. You're
It's
talking
great.
about this energy drain, and we're talking about rest
Mm,
and recovery. And one of the insights for me in respecting the role of rest and recovery
mhm.
was, I mean, was this. I always thought, particularly to get better physical health, to have a better,
Mhm.
beach body, that I better be hitting it. I got to be hitting it. I got to be hitting it every day. And
Right.
every day I take off is a day that I'm not moving ahead. And so even if I was feeling sick or down or didn't get enough sleep the night before, I gotta get up. I gotta do it. I gotta crush it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, going through your program and getting some of a different perspective, like
Mm.
particularly like that the data gave me and like what's your optimal strain level today?
Yes. Yes.
It made me face this perception I had of always go because
Right.
sometimes my optimal strain level that this biometric was telling me was saying, "Hey, dude, relax." So
Isn't that
what?
cool?
It really is. So I want to talk about both sides of rest and
Yeah.
recovery, right? Of like, one side is like get the rest and recovery your body needs, and it's not about crushing it every day. And you being an expert in the physical body, this has been your domain for many, many years.
Mm.
Actually, I'm just going to show this others. Okay. You being that expert, tell us about why is sleep, like what's happening in sleep
Mm.
to your actual muscles getting built? Like, am I understanding correctly that that's actually when the magic happens? It's not until we're actually at rest that all these things build. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, it works. Yeah, okay. The short answer, yes, that's correct. And then there's more. And there's more to that,
Okay,
from
good.
the standpoint that sleep is really interesting because as they've done, I mean, the amount of research on sleep is exhausting, okay? Like you need a snap after going through all the research
Mhm.
because it is something that we spend a good portion, upwards of a third of our lives doing. So you would think that there's a lot of resources that go into researching this thing that occupies a lot of our time. And what they found is that there's these various phases of sleep that we hopefully, this is the thing, right? We hope that we're tapping into every night when we sleep. And we have these sleep cycles that happens in cycles and our brain patterns go to different waves. So it's like alpha waves, beta waves, theta waves.
Mhm.
And each of these waves are responsible for different levels of recovery or resetting or regulation. So when I say regulating, I'm referring to like hormones. Our hormones are critical. I mean, it's what controls all the actions in our body, quite frankly, you know? And if our hormones are out of whack, certain activities in our body might be out of whack too, you know? Um, and as such, that creates a whole cascading effect of problems or challenges that we have to deal with. Now, women are very familiar with this. I mean, that happens naturally in their life cycle as they age and as they move out of that sort of childbirthing years, they move into sort of this perimenopausal, menopausal phase. And that's where estrogen and hormones start to change, start to shift. And men go through something very similar as we age. Not as drastic, I got to be honest. We don't have it as hard as the ladies. I mean, they really go through the gamut, but also they have vessels that get the honor to carry children. You know, that's pretty freaking cool. We're all here because of a beautiful, powerful woman brought us here. And you know that we cannot forget that, but there's so many more mechanisms and complicated structures and processes, etc., that happen within women that don't necessarily happen in men. But as different as we are, we still have the basic foundations and pieces that are working. And during sleep, when we go into like an REM or a deep sleep, so there's sort of think about like, you know, you have sort of this nice easy sleep, then we get into a deep sleep, then we get into what's called an REM sleep, and each of these phases are critical.
Mhm.
Obviously, a little bit more volume in each is not a bad thing. But every time we wake, we interrupt that pattern. So if you're someone that spends a lot of time on screens, your circadian rhythm might be slightly off. So you find that you don't get as much deep, restorative sleep. You might get a little bit of REM, but you're not getting that deep recovery sleep. And so you might find that certain things are working, some things aren't. And the prime example of this, Maurice, and for anybody listening or watching this, the easy way to do it is like, wow, I got 8 hours sleep last night. And you wake up and you feel like you could use another eight.
Mhm.
You know, it's like usually that's a sign that our sleep quality isn't as good as it could be. Or maybe we're eating a bit too close to bed. So those digestive processes are interfering with our sleep ability. And there's all these certain things that can be at play. And that's why it's never a straight line to the answer when we're dealing with challenges. We sort of have to take a I always joke with people. I say, you just got to be your own mad scientist, okay? And you yourself are your own lab. And you have to
Mhm.
start to be very aware of some of the decisions and actions you're making and choosing to do. That includes the food, the drink, the ability to rest and recover, to move our body with purpose, to create certain adaptations that are hopefully positive. You know, all these factors come into play, even what we feed our minds with every day. And that's why it's great that you're having these conversations because here's like prime example. These is great things to feed our mind with, right? It
Mhm.
grows us as human beings. But regardless of everything that I've just said, when our sleep quality is not where it could be, it's not a volume thing, it's a quality thing. You know, a lot of people think quantity, quantity, quantity. It's not, it's quality. Now, quantity ain't bad either, but quality's got to be there regardless. Like you could get five, like I've had certain nights where I've had maybe 6.5 hours of sleep, yet my recovery on my Whoop band is quite high. It's in what they call the green zone, which means I'm in a good recovery state.
Mhm.
I'm usually primed and able to handle a little bit more stress, or as they refer to it in Whoop, a little bit more strain in the day. I can
Mhm.
deal with more stress on the body, on the mind, situational stress. I'm more resilient and able to handle that because I'm in a recovered state. I had good sleep. My body hit certain metric points during that sleep. I wake up and my metrics are saying, yeah, you know what? Today you can go. Hey, that tough conversation you want to have with your business partner, today's probably a good day to have that, you know, or you've been wanting to go to your wife and not to maybe ask for permission, but maybe to seek forgiveness. And maybe today's the day to do that, right? But regardless, we know the toll that hard, stressful situations create on us physically. We talk about this all the time. It's like, oh, I got butterflies in my stomach. What does that mean? It's those nerves, right? And so our ability to handle nerves, everything's connected, but this sleep piece is so critical. You could be the fittest person on the planet, but I'll tell you, if you can't be fit with your sleep,
Mhm.
it's just a recipe for disaster eventually. You know, you can sort of as you said earlier, Maurice, you sort of wake up and you just sort of push yourself. It's like I said I was going to the gym today. I'm going to go, but there's everything in you saying don't go. It's like I really don't want to go. This my body doesn't feel right. I don't feel rested. I don't feel like I really want to do this. There's a difference between motivation and just being aware of how your body is
Hmm.
feeling and
Yeah.
what's going on.
Hmm.
And that's another critical piece, which we might get into. But regardless, I hope that sort of touches on that. But I want to just tell people there's lots of great information on sleep out there.
Hmm.
I've got a couple podcast episodes of my podcast, 2% Solution, that's dedicated to just sleep and sleep health.
Hmm.
But there's tons. Huberman Lab, Rogan. I mean, they've had some great sleep experts on. So there's a lot of great data information out there. But the number one thing I recommend is get yourself a biometric reader, like a Whoop band,
Hmm.
and just start to monitor some of the points. Like how much REM are you getting? How much deep restorative sleep? What's your heart doing while you're in a restful state? Is it staying elevated? Is it getting to a restful state where things slow down a bit so all that regulating can happen?
Hmm.
Without the awareness and the knowledge, it's just guessing, you know?
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Thank you for that. And I want to really, I want to pull out some of the nuggets of wisdom in terms of
Yeah, of course, please.
practicality that you also shared in terms of some of the things that can really kind of take away from our rest and recovery and maybe improve your sleep and not just the amount, but the quality. So
Yeah.
I heard you say be careful on like when you eat. Don't eat
Mm.
right before bed. A good rule of thumb is what, 2, 3 hours or more than
Yeah,
that?
it depends on certain individuals have an ability, and again, also what you're eating before bed will play into that. Like, and listen, I've worked with some clients, and I've even been at certain stages of my life where I've needed to eat before bed. Just the way my training's been, the way my day's been. Maybe I had a late meal, but I'll choose to maybe have a lighter meal, something that won't require as much digestion, as an example. But if you can, a good rule of thumb is to aim for 2 to 3 hours. We have a little rule, and my apologies, I'm having a little bit of a brain miss up here, but I don't remember the person that created it, but there was a doctor that created this thing called the 3-2-1 principle or protocol. It's where we don't eat 3 hours before bed. We don't have any liquids 2 hours before bed, and no screen time 1 hour before bed.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And so that is a great way to sort of begin. But again, we can be a little bit loose. I said 2 to 3 hours for the food thing.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah.
And I really liked your analogy, and you can hear it in your answers, and if you're listening to this, you're like, well, I want clarity. What exactly do I
Yeah.
do I do? I think it's important to pull in the wisdom of your analogy of remember you're your own lab, and your body's going to react and need different things than my body will, and age and
Yeah.
stage plays a big
Yes.
part in this.
Correct.
So to pay attention to how your body's responding and adjust accordingly.
Well said. Yeah.
Uh, okay, so that's almost rest and recovery. There was another piece that you mentioned. I gotta find it, find it. It will come back to me. It will come back to
Ah, I like it.
me.
Well, we were talking about the burnout and the sort of the mental stress piece too, because realized strain as determined by Whoop, again, it's just sort of how Whoop, a lot of people refer to this a little bit differently. Like it could be your daily activity or daily output. I like the idea of strain because it also implies that there's a certain, I guess, energy requirement to do the things that we
Yep,
do every day, you
yep,
know, and that creates strain. It creates this stress, if you will, a tension, and the tension's not a bad thing. I mean, it's what keeps us on our toes, keeps us alert. I mean, we can't undo a millennia of just these inter awareness tools that we are gifted with, like the reticular activation system, like we get an idea that we want something, all of a sudden our brain's like, yo, you see this thing over here? That's that thing. Like maybe you want a pink Cadillac, and the next thing you think is start noticing pink Cadillacs everywhere. Again, we're tapping into our subconscious, but also bringing it to a conscious level. So many mechanisms in the body can operate similarly, and so it's just figuring that out. And you hold the keys. And I'm referring to not just you, Maurice, and the people listening, but each individual person has keys to this stuff. but it's figuring out what key unlocks what.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of trial and error because what works for Maurice, what works for me may not work for you, whoever's listening or watching this,
Hmm.
but vice versa, some of the things that are working for you may not work for us.
Yeah.
It's like I have some friends that thrive on a vegetarian or a vegan diet. I have tried that. I've struggled with that. I've found that it just affects all my moving parts in my life to the place that I see a decline in performance, and certain recovery mechanisms as well, especially when it comes to inflammation in my body and being someone with a chronic autoimmune condition.
Yeah.
Yeah, keeping inflammation at bay is pretty important, right? So I've recognized that certain other types of eating or styles of eating is more beneficial for me and me managing my autoimmune condition. So
Yeah.
that's just one example.
Okay. Fantastic. On the, I want to repeat your number one, your number one recommendation is like get your metrics.
Yes.
Whether it's a Samsung or Apple Watch or whether it's a Whoop band, whatever it is, whatever you're starting with,
Yeah.
when you have that feedback and are looking at it, you can use that in your life.
Mm.
I want to throw in if you've got nothing, like not everyone wants to
Mm.
wear a watch, not everyone can,
Mm.
you know, wants to pay $30 a month, like these things cost money.
For sure. Yeah.
You can replace that with not fully, but I'm also a huge proponent of our inner wisdom, and all we need to do is listen.
Mm.
So I also want to remind it's not I can't afford that, I don't have that, so I can't
Yeah.
do this. You can start right tomorrow and just pay more attention to your body. Close your
Yes.
eyes and do a body scan. You're going throughout your day. If you're feeling tired and exhausted, pay attention to that. What are the patterns? When did you go to sleep last night? Take a journal that, cost you $2, the grocery store. Like, just start to pay attention of your own biorhythm.
Mm.
And that is a fantastic start
Yeah.
to listening to that same. So I just wanted to detach
Mhm.
or the dependency on technology to the great advice that you give to say, hey, ultimately, if you can have something monitoring you, that's going to be amazing. And also, you can start today, right now, just by
But I
paying
will
attention.
say, and I'm just going to stress this, it will be the best investment you ever make in your health. I Once you understand what's going on internally, and more importantly, you start to understand those little things that have become very habitual.
Yes.
What is it actually doing? Is it a good thing for me, or is it actually creating some challenges that maybe I'm not fully aware of or not willing to admit to? And it's usually more the latter, to be
Yep.
honest, like,
Yep.
oh, really? That little habit of mine, having that one glass of wine after work? You mean that one little thing is the thing that's been derailing my sleep? Really? So, I mean, if I get rid of that, I'm going to sleep at, well, am I really ready to get rid of that? You know? And a lot of people don't realize, but alcohol is a killer when it comes to things like resting heart rate variability, and our ability to get into deep restorative sleep. And I'm not
Yep.
here to vilify alcohol, but I'm just letting people know if you're someone that drinks alcohol, you may not be fully aware, but man, it is affecting your system in big, big ways,
I
But
can
it's, yeah, you
absolutely
can speak to this,
I
Maurice.
can I can 100%. I was in your program for, it's closer to 70 or 80 days. A month
Yeah.
of that I did a dry November. My
Woo.
stats were gorgeous. Let's just say December was not so pretty. And with that awareness has helped me to make, some better, more
Yeah.
responsible choices. So absolutely. The other highlights with real-time data that help me, both on the positive and sometimes whether I like it or not, the like, do I really want to know that? I'll use last night as an example. I didn't I didn't feel like working out. And I wasn't
Yeah.
really sure if it was a motivation or a thing. I looked, I had already surpassed my strain level. So
Huge. Wow.
I hit my optimal strain level that day. It
Yeah.
kind of gave myself permission to relax, to not push.
Yes.
And today, when I'm doing my workout, I know that in that final set, I'm going to look at my strain level and I'm going to be a little bit sad that I'm not there yet. And it's going to
Yeah.
help push me to that next level. So on both sides, helping you understand, what your body's capable of and when it needs a rest. So I've certainly experienced both sides of that coin,
Love it. Love it.
as I'm sure you have. Okay, so since we're in the strain game, let's talk about exercise, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
so if you're wanting to have a better relationship with your physical body,
Hmm.
like, what's your advice to exercise? Like, and you've got people here from already got a good routine in and want to bring it to
Yeah.
the next level and just never been able to get on the horse.
Well, here's the thing. Walking's better for yourself than being on a horse anyway. So just keep walking, like, and, I joke, but this idea of moving our body with purpose. And what I mean by that is intentionally setting aside some time to do something that challenges us but doesn't break us.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to be very clear. I'll say that again. Challenge you, but not break you. I say this all the time, especially when I'm coaching fitness classes or CrossFit or functional fitness, Olympic weight. Like I've been in the space for 30 years, so there's lots of stuff I do,
Yeah.
like, but the bottom line is you don't want to push yourself to the place where you hurt yourself or do so much pain that all of a sudden the next 3 or 4 or 5 or a week, you're just like walking around hobbling thinking, gosh, what happened?
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden you worked out once and then you don't work out again for another week. Well, that is a lot of start, stop, and wait. You
Mhm.
know, you're missing out on a lot of opportunity. And so when it comes to fitness, I recommend you've got one amazing piece of fitness equipment in your life. And if you're fortunate enough, you might have it the rest of your life. Okay. And that's your body. If you have the ability and you learn how to move your body with purpose, you can work out everything, whether it be our heart, our cardiovascular system, right down to our musculature, to our ligaments, everything can be moved and moved with intention to create a positive adaptation. And what I mean by that is, and here's the thing, right? If we go back to Darwin, right? Theory of relative, sorry, not theory of relativity, but his, when he was looking at all these species, what he found was it was the ones that had the ability to adapt the quickest survived. And often he was studying species in very, if we use the word strain, very strain-ridden environments, right? A lot of high stress. And what he found was the ones that could bounce back and literally find resilience, even though in spite of the stress, were the ones that adapt and evolved into something else. It's a basic principle. And we're here as the top of the food chain because of that, all right? Us as human beings in our DNA. You people that are listening and watching this, you already are awesome, okay? You are resilient. You are here right now, not by accident, okay? And in you is the ability to adapt. It's in your DNA. And so when it comes to fitness, doing things that create a positive adaptation is a good thing. There's no perfect way and there's no right or wrong way. But if you start to move your body with a little bit of purpose, what I mean by that is like get out for a walk.
Yeah.
And you could be walking with a friend. You're carrying on a conversation, no problem, as if there's no effort. Awesome. Well, what if you just up the pacing just a little bit? So now you're having a conversation with your friend, but it's like a little bit bated, right? Bated breath, like meaning that it's like, okay, Maurice, and then we continue the sentence. But then all of a sudden we get to a place it's like, no, okay, Maurice, you got to talk now because I got to catch my breath. But you keep it. That's usually what we refer to as zone two training.
Mhm.
Zone two or zone three training, and I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty here, but if you want to go look that up, there's a lot of great research that shows if you're looking to release excess body fat, working out in zone two category is phenomenal. It helps us burn more fat than other forms of training, at least when it comes to that cardiovascular output. So that could be cycling, it could be going for a swim, it could be going for a run, a jog, maybe doing some burpees. I mean, whatever, but we're getting our heart rate elevated and we're really recruiting our cardiovascular system and hopefully recruiting a little bit of muscles as well. Now, on the flip side, that's cardiovascular, it's full body. We could also add a little bit of loading to some of these body weight movements or cardiovascular activities. Maybe we put on a weighted vest. And now you're out there walking with your friend, trying to walk at a clipper pace, but now you put on a 10-pound weighted vest,
Hmm.
your calorie burn goes up, your heart rate gets elevated, the amount of muscles you have to use to move your body are also now being engaged more.
Hmm.
So it's just one little modification, one extra layer added to that. And now we've changed the whole dynamic, but you're still just walking.
Yeah.
And if there's one activity you want to be able to do till the day that you depart this mortal coil, as Shakespeare would say, it is your ability to move freely.
Hmm.
You know, it's one thing we don't want to take for granted. That's why I always come back to walking. It's the best place. If you have someone that hasn't been doing any exercise, has not been working out consistently for a long time, create a walking habit,
Hmm.
you know? And Maurice, and I know you're a big fan of this too, but this idea of cascading commitments, cascading habits. Um, I think it was in the book Atomic Habits. He talks about it, habit stacking, you know, and it's this idea of looking at multiple things. So, like, I love to read, but you know, when I'm walking, it's really hard to read and walk at the same time. So I listen to an audiobook.
Hmm.
I'm out walking, I'll do my audiobook, but I'll also focus on my breath. So I'm doing three things
Hmm.
during that same half an hour.
Yeah.
And so I'm checking off a lot of great boxes that way.
Yeah.
And so this same applies to anybody I invite to start to move their body with a bit more purpose. There's no, as I said, no right or wrong way, but just get out there and start moving. But I think walking is one of the most effective forms of exercise. So just getting out and walking a few
Hmm.
times a week. And if you
Hmm.
can do it every day for 30 minutes, oh my goodness, you watch out 2 weeks from now, you'll be ready you're going to want more.
Yeah.
Bottom line, you're going to want more. You're going to start feeling so good. You're going to start sleeping better, start handling stress better. You're like, geez, my body feels good. I wonder what else I can do. And
Yeah.
that boost in confidence and self-awareness, you are going to feel motivated, but also excited to go and see what's possible,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, those are a few things because I don't want to overcomplicate. Say, hey, go try CrossFit, go do this. Yeah, you know what? Whatever you do, awesome. You know,
Hmm.
just start moving.
Yeah. So I'm hearing like you have everything you need already.
You
S-
bet.
Start with consistency. Stack habits. Another habit hack would be that I want to add to the conversation is um, to put the habit beside something you're already doing,
Yeah.
right? So it's
Yeah.
already kind of a routine that you're already used to. I love that you brought up like a weighted vest. And I just want to play around with the excuses of like, I don't have that, or I don't have this, or I
Yeah.
can't do that. A weighted vest. I learned about rocking this year.
Rucking. Rucking.
Rucking. Thank you.
Yes.
Rucking.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's rucking?
Yeah, rucking. I mean, it's a military thing, right? Like that's
Hmm.
basically you got to think about these guys with the 50-pound pack. Rucking is basically them out there working at a marching pace with a 50-pound pack on their back, and they'll go 20 miles, 30 miles. Like, I mean, whatever they need to do, right? I mean, Navy SEALs will just go for 24 hours. But it's regardless, this idea of rucking, it's sort of hiking with a backpack. I mean, I
Yeah.
went and did the West Coast Trail last year. I guess I could say I rucked for a week, right? But it's very intentional brisk walking with this weighted pack on. And the neat
Okay.
thing is with rucking now, people are doing lots of stuff. In CrossFit, they came out with a workout this year called the Chad. And it was 1,000 box step ups, 20-inch box,
Hmm.
but with a 50-pound weighted bag on your back.
Yep.
So imagine that 1,000 step ups for
Yep.
time with this 50-pound pack on. I haven't done that one yet, by the way. I'm like kind of chicken, but maybe later, maybe later. But anyways, that piggybacks the whole rucking thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the way it was introduced to me, and maybe it was like a sidestep of it was like, maybe it was called rocking, but literally someone was putting rocks in their
Yes.
backpack
Yeah. Great.
and just walking. So my point is get creative if you don't have the
Yeah.
equipment, right? Like it's like
Well said.
you have what you need around you, and it's easy to say, well, I don't. But you can, and get creative, use that creative genius that's within you home.
And Maurice, actually, to piggyback what you just said, because this is a great way to look at a workout. You know, you have that weighted pack. Maybe you put 10 pounds of books in there. You put your backpack on.
Yep.
You go out for a walk. Well, set a timer to beep every 5 minutes at you. And you know, at every 5 minutes, when you hear the beep go off or the alarm go off or the vibration go off, time to stop, maybe do 10 squats,
Hmm.
10 push-ups, and maybe a 30-second plank.
Yep.
That's going to take you about 1 minute to do. And so you're out for a 30-minute walk. Well, you're going to have 6 5-minute intervals. So, you know, at the end of that 30 minutes, wow, maybe you've done 60 push-ups.
Hmm.
You've done 60 squats. You've done, literally maybe 6 minutes of plank holding, but also you've done 30 minutes of rucking, right?
Hmm.
So it's really simple to start to get really creative with your body with some basic equipment. And funny thing is, my background and some that are listening and watching this, I was in the fitness equipment business. I used to have a chain of retail stores selling fitness equipment, accessories, apparel, supplements. It was like a big candy store for us people, like that are into fitness.
Hmm.
And I have to say, I I mean, to the chagrin and probably the disappointment of some of my partners back in the day, especially some of my staff, I used to just recommend to people, just get yourself a pair of shoes and get out for a walk.
Yep.
Because if you can create that consistent habit, adding some equipment into the mix is just going to be more fun, give you more variety, which is wonderful. But if you don't have the habit of moving the body intentionally with the desire to see some positive changes, see the improvement in resilience, don't go spend a bunch of money on equipment,
Yep.
because that's unfortunately good money after bad.
Mhm. Yeah. 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 Okay. Amazing. Thank you. How about we move to fuel and nutrition?
Yeah,
You
my
talked about
favorite. I
like
love it.
what you put in your body matters, and
Yeah.
let's start really, really basic.
Mm.
At the end of the day, right, right. How do we know what to put if we're even putting the right things in our body?
The simplest thing and the simplest answer I can give anybody: more whole foods, less processed foods. That's probably the simplest way to put it. And when I say whole foods, I'm talking about foods that are not in a box, a jar, or a package. Usually stuff that's not in the middle of the grocery store. It's the stuff that's around the perimeter. We have our deli, we have our produce, we have the bakery, right? Like we have all these sections that are ready-made stuff or grown things, not processed, packaged, and designed to be shipped all around the world, right?
Mhm.
And because once you start to put things in packages, you have to start looking at shelf life. You have to look at
Yep.
logistics. You have to look at flavor profiles because foods might go bad. So what do we do to preserve it? What do we do to keep the flavor intact or enhance it, right?
Yep.
So they tend to put a lot of stuff in there.
Yep.
There's a great book that came out in the last few years called Ultra Processed Humans. All right. And it talks about the impact that ultra processed foods have had on us over the last 40 years and where the trend is going. Because if there's people out there that struggle with whatever they eat and they even eat processed foods, but they're watching calories and they're wondering, why am I still putting weight on? You'll
Yep.
be surprised at how some of these chemicals that are in our foods, and I'm talking excess salts, excess sugars, and carbohydrates, and just simple starches, the kind of effects that it can have on the inner workings of our body. So I'm bringing this up because if you're somebody that's like got a really smart way of eating and you're really conscious of what you put in your body, and yet you're still finding that you're struggling with seeing physical changes or adaptations, it's not your fault. There might be something else happening there. There might be a food allergy. There might be an inner condition that hasn't been diagnosed yet. There might be some excess inflammation happening that's not being regulated. Like there's other factors worth exploring and might not be connected to nutrition at all.
Hmm.
And I just want that to be aware
Yeah.
because I know that I've had clients that are like, man, I eat this. They give me their food diary. And I'm like, man, that really looks good. I don't get it.
Yep.
And so you have to start looking at other lifestyle factors, look at
Yep.
biometrics, and so I just wanted to bring that up because just because you change your nutrition doesn't mean you get a guaranteed pass to being healthy.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yep.
there's a lot of aspects that come into whole health. But nutrition, if you start to eat more whole foods, less
Whole
processed
foods.
foods, you'll instantly eat less sugar. You're going to
Yep.
have less salts, right? Which are more preservatives when we find those in packaging. Once you start controlling those, you start to see an improvement in this energy swing that we experience throughout the day.
Yep.
Blood sugar, insulin is very much responsible with regulating blood sugar in our body, but most of us are on a roller coaster.
Yep.
We eat something, we see a spike in blood sugar, we have a huge crash. Because if you're eating the typical North American diet, or I'll call it Commonwealth country diet now, it's typically a lot of highly processed foods, fairly high in fat and sugars, usually lower in proteins. And because of that, we're on this constant cascade. We're chasing the energy
Yep. Yep.
all day
Yep.
long.
Yes.
In Canada, you know this, Maurice. What happens mid-afternoon and half of Canadians go to this little store called Tim Hortons, right? Timmy O's, and they get themselves a double double. What's a double double? Well, it's usually a coffee with two creams, two sugars, and they usually have a pastry, a donut or a muffin or something on the side. And the funny thing is, there's a lot of people that say, "Well, I go for the muffin or I go for this because I think I'll have the brand muffin, raisin bran muffin because I'm sure it's healthier." You start looking at the ingredients and it's no different than the donut. Okay,
Yeah.
you might as well just eat the donut if that's the one you want, because when it comes to how your body processes and how it deals with it, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's again processed foods. Yeah.
Okay. So as simple as look in your shopping cart and what comes out of like what's whole? Apple, orange versus it's in a box and I gotta read it. Well, that's a good indication that maybe you're not in that whole category.
And I forgot to talk about fiber. You just reminded me of that.
Good.
Fiber, natural fibers. Like, think about it. Could you drink a liter of apple juice?
No. Well, I could, but I
You
wouldn't want
could.
to.
I
Yeah.
know you wouldn't want to, but
Yeah.
most people aren't aware of this. Okay. Like sugar sweetened beverages, even fruit juices, very high in what's called fructose.
Yep.
That's natural sugars appearing in fruit. So we think, oh, that's fruit juice. That's
Hmm.
freshly squeezed juice, right? Must be good for me. Again, nutritionally speaking, yes, but the amount of sugar you're getting in a single sitting. Like if I was to say, okay, you could have a large glass of freshly squeezed orange juice. Meanwhile, there's 8 oranges that have gone into that.
Yep.
Okay. Or I'd say, Maurice, hey, here's the 8 oranges. Go to town.
Yep.
Like, you're not going to eat the 8 oranges, dude. There's just, I mean, maybe you can. Maybe you're really, really hungry. But the amount of work and effort, but also the fact that there's a lot of natural fibers, and the key is fiber. It's what makes us more full, also helps regulate blood sugars. When you're getting more whole foods, you're normally going to get more fiber instinctively, like right out of the gate.
Yep.
So, like with an apple, like most people could drink a liter of apple juice because there's a lot of sweetness to it.
Yep.
It is satiating, but it's also like a bag and a half of calories that you would have had to eaten a bag and a half of apples,
Right.
like 3 pounds of apples. No
Yep.
one's going to sit down and eat 3 pounds of apples because you're going to get so full before you get through three of them.
Hmm.
And this is just why I'm also talking about whole versus processed. I think the
Right.
juices is a great way to show that whole fruit versus juiced fruit. You'd be really challenged to try to eat as many calories in the whole fruit as you would get in a glass of it.
Right.
You know,
So it's like got its own regulation, natural
it's
regulation.
tough. It
Yeah.
is, right? But our bodies know. Like it knows. It wants more of the fiber. It wants more of the micronutrients that are often found only in foods, not in processed foods, because it's often taken out of the foods. And then they put back in, like look at a lot of these breads, right? It's like enriched with XYZ. And I'm like, well, that's normally just in whole wheat. You find that stuff, and it's like like vitamin B or there's certain B vitamins that you find in natural whole wheats, right? And yet you'll find like the Wonder Bread that's really white, and it's like enriched with vitamin B and this and that and the other. Well, it's like they've basically taken all the good stuff out and then rebuilt it with all this man-made engineered stuff that they put back in to make it healthier. Like
Mhm.
it's kind of weird, right? Like when you really think about it, it's weird. It's just weird. Like, why are you
Yeah.
doing that? But most of us just aren't aware of these inner workings.
Yeah. And in the category of fluids, right? In
Yeah.
terms of what we're putting in, I know for me, my lack of water, I didn't really realize until my 30s that I was like, oh, I have a sore back. And
Ah.
someone was just like, drink water, dude. Because he asked me one question and I answered it. It was like, no, like that, like, and that helped. So my kids are sick of me saying that all the time. They have an
Yeah.
ailment. How much water are you drinking? And if the answer isn't like they've got all their water bottles, so okay, so I think that's probably a common thing to know. So let's assume that whoever's listening knows that. how do you get into the habit? What are the best things that you've heard of people making sure they get in their water for the day?
Well, and there's lots of creative ways, like, gamifying things is a great way to sort of just get excited about it, make it a little bit easier to do, if you will. And when I say easier, it's not like it's easier. You still got to do the thing, but it might feel more natural or less resistance or less energy required to try to constantly remind yourself. But for those that are challenged to just remember, there are apps for this, okay? Literally water apps that will beep at you every hour on the hour to have 250 mils or 500 mils of water. I mean, you tell it how much water you want to have and how in a day. It breaks it up into time intervals and equal quantities, and it basically beeps at you and annoys you until you do it.
Yep.
Now, that's one way. The other way is, and I often encourage people when they start to work with me, is like get a water bottle that you love, a
Yes.
water bottle that you be happy and proud to carry around with you.
Yep.
Make sure it's at least 500 mils upwards to a liter. I've seen
Hmm.
some guys like, well, in our group, we had
Yes. Yeah.
one
Yeah.
gentleman in particular get a big mammoth thing. And
Hmm.
he got two of these because he knew, well, that was my water intake. I got these two things I fill every morning. I know by the end of the day, these two things got to be empty.
Hmm.
Right. And then I've met my water requirement. So it's very front of mind, has it on his home workstation. So during the day while he's working, it's staring at him as a nice reminder.
Yep.
I just say get a nice water bottle, start to take it with you everywhere.
Hmm.
Yeah, no excuses. It's one of those things you just got to keep bringing it. Eventually, you'll get to a place where you'll feel naked if you don't have it with you.
Yep.
At that point, your water game's on point.
Yep.
Okay, it's like you've got this figured out. But it just takes discipline and a little bit of a gamification, if you will. Even setting up your timer just to beep at you, the similarly to I said before with the workout. If you're going rucking, like every 5 minutes, I'm going to do some exercises while I'm out there rucking or walking. Same with water. Just maybe set up a little reminder, even every 45 to 50 minutes, to have a glass of water.
Hmm. Yep.
After a few days, you're going to notice a shift in your energy,
Yep.
your shift in handling stress, your shift in just being able to exert yourself.
Yep.
Because water is in every cell in your body.
Yep.
Every mechanism in your body is dependent on water to some level. Our body is mainly water.
Yep.
you know, Hydrogen and oxygen make up a lot of human beings. Okay. And so one of the best resources to get that is obviously H2O,
Hmm.
good old water. So I do recommend once you get in the habit of having water, and now I get this one too, and I should be devil's advocate here, Maurice, is I just don't like the taste of water.
Hmm.
What you're telling me is that I need some sugar. Okay. That's probably what it is because water is not sweet. It's neutral. It actually has no flavor profile. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
It's in our DNA. It's meant to be that way. It's also meant to be safety mechanism.
Hmm.
If you drink some water and it tastes off, it's a sign that it might not be good water to drink, right?
Yep.
So there is a mechanism within us. That's why water doesn't have a flavor profile because if it does have flavor, it might not be right.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, in the last 100 years, we like to sweeten things up. We like to grind some beans and put it in there, make black water, which I love, by the way. That coffee I'm talking about, not mud water. But the long and short is, once you start to drink water and you decrease the sugar and the sodium intake, salts and sugars, you're going
Hmm.
to find that your taste buds open up again, but also your ability to start to enjoy water because of the quenching effect, the satiation effect,
Hmm.
but also the energetic effect that it creates in us is very positive. Once you start to experience that, it's pretty hard to deny it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do. I do. Yeah. I'm gonna pull a couple other things that I've noticed when I've seen people drink water and not as skin quality.
Yeah.
But like can really, really increase. So like you don't have to be pregnant to glow. Just
Yeah.
drink more water. The other thing I want to pull up is like I think this common in very real, like, oh, I can't possibly change my diet or I don't have time to do this or that. Yeah, because it's going to require a pattern interrupt.
Yes,
It's going
correct.
to require you to get out of a habit, which is often a rut. If you're feeling it, if you're still listening to this, then it's
Yeah.
maybe more likely a rut. onto a new track, and that's going to take some real effort.
Yeah.
And and that effort, the lift though, isn't as big. My experience isn't as big as most people perceive. It's just getting out of that pattern and into the next thing. An example from whole foods to processed foods.
Mm,
We're a very, very busy household,
yeah.
moving very, very quickly. What was one of my fears? And the difference is in prep. So
Hmm.
once you get into a new habit of one night a week prepping, it actually can go even faster.
Yes.
Because you, instead of it being processed, you're doing your own processing
Oh,
and your own planning. So it will take a pattern interrupt of new habits, of new things for change to occur. And the lift probably isn't as hard as you think. I want to really
yeah.
remind people of that because that's certainly been my experience.
I
Okay.
think you're right with that too, because also when we start to feel good and start to feel better,
Yes. Yes.
I mean, I don't know about you, but when I start to feel better, I want to keep feeling better.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, ooh, okay, this is good. I like this. I don't like how I was feeling 2 days ago, but I really like how I'm feeling now.
Yeah.
How do I make this more my normal?
That's right.
And you start to look at, well, what was I doing the last 2 days? Oh, I was doing this. So I got all my water in. Oh, I got a workout in. Oh, yeah, I got to bed on time. I got up at the same time. Because also on the sleep piece, I forgot to mention this, but having sleep consistency is really important. Going to bed roughly at the same time, waking up around the same time within plus or minus an hour. That's the ideal space. If you're having a lot of very erratic sleep patterns, that's going to lead to lack of recovery, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Anyways, I know we could go on all day on this stuff, but I really liked what you put there, man. I thought that was really good, Maurice.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So we've covered right water. We've covered both like the foods that we're putting into our bodies.
Yep.
I want to talk about I know we can get complicated pretty fast with this thing called macros.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
probably even more accessible right now to almost everyone. We've heard about calories, calories in, calories out.
Yeah.
I'm just going to talk about one of the limiting beliefs or one of the beliefs I had that you helped me understand and move away from.
Yeah.
And I had this belief that calories in, calories out. So if I have
Mm,
less calories, then I'm going to, get fitter. I'm going to lose a little bit more weight. I'm going to be a little bit tighter. So that's what I should shoot for. And if I'm not feeling hungry, then great. I'll have a little less calories. And I did this pretty consistently and I lost some weight for sure.
mhm.
But then I noticed wasn't getting anywhere. My muscles weren't forming. I was just like, die, like what the heck? Like I've been doing the work. I've been doing the work and the work
Yeah.
isn't working. And I typically say when you do the work, it works. In
Yeah.
my case, I saw some results and then I hit a flat. And what I realized was that when I don't fuel my body with enough calories, nothing can grow.
Hmm.
I was just, and it was affecting my energy and, I was actually getting, I was starving myself.
Yes.
But you told me about another thing about how my body would then retain what?
It's going to retain body fat for
Yeah.
one.
Right.
Like think about feast and famine. I talked about this DNA and this millennia of us being developed into the top of the food chain that we are today, these human beings, right? And or more human doing than anything. But regardless, the humanity, our species, has evolved over a millennia. Like for thousands and hundreds of thousands of years. But the basic mechanisms evolved to a certain point that they're not changing overnight. Okay, what we got is what we got right now, and we know a lot about it. We know sort of how it works, how it functions, and food are simply building blocks. Everything in our body, every cell in our body is going to have fat in it. Fat's very critical, especially even with hormones and proteins, right? I Proteins are kind of the building blocks. Carbohydrates are kind of the fuel, right? Which are often sugars. That's really what carbohydrates are. But again, there's quality of sugars. Table sugar, it spikes our insulin and creates a great energy high, but it also creates an equivalent energy crash. But when we have certain sugars that are more whole food in origin, but also less refined carbohydrates, we often find that that's a slower burning energy.
So,
So we
but
lose a
I
bit
want to go
more.
back to, sorry to
Yeah,
cut you off,
let's
but I
talk
want to
about
go,
you.
I want to go back to, what do you mean? Like I'm not even giving my
So
body fat.
I I
I'm
know.
not
I'm
giving my
gonna
body fat.
I
How is it
think
retaining it? What do you
okay, here's the
mean?
deal. So here's the deal. Our bodies, our human beings, us as an individual require so much energy a day just to do the functioning that's happening internally and
Mhm.
externally. Just for you to live your life. Now, Maurice, if you were just to lie in bed all day, 24/7, your body would still require a basal metabolic amount, or they call it a BMR, basal metabolic rate. It's basically what our metabolism requires for our bodies to function. That includes recovery, rebuilding, also replacing and healing. And if we're not getting enough calories to do just the basics, things got to start shutting down. They got to find that stuff somewhere. And so we often will see this in certain people and people that do starve them, like quite literally starve themselves. Maybe those with eating disorders is a prime example. Now, this is an extreme, obviously, but they're getting to the point where there's so few calories that their bodies start to catabolize, meaning that their bodies are literally eating themselves to find the energy. And if we're not getting adequate protein, as an example, our bodies need protein to survive. We need it. And if we can't get protein, where's the protein on our bodies right now? Typically in muscles. And so we'll see this deterioration and literally breakdown of muscles so we can survive another day and our body can do the basic functions. Now, in your example, Maurice, you are eating enough calories in a day to more or less cover your basal metabolic rate. But here's the thing, you are also working out and moving your body and hitting some very high strain levels every day. That required a certain amount of calories needing to be replenished so you could still hit your basal metabolic rate.
Mhm.
Because if you think about it, I've got, let's
Yep.
just say my basal metabolic rate's 2,000 calories a day. I need 2,000 calories just to stay as I am every day.
Yep.
And if I'm getting 2,500 calories, but I'm now working out and burning 1,000 calories, that puts me at a net of 1,500 calories on the day.
Yep.
That creates a 500 calorie deficit under what my basal metabolic rate. Now, that deficit over time, that's a healthier deficit, by the way, because I'm still covering my basic functions, but I'm also then burning some of the excess off, trying to provide my body with enough strain that it starts to metabolize some of my fat for energy in my body. So rather than me constantly looking for food to go in, it's saying, yo, you've got some calories stored here for a rainy day. Let's use some of that right now because you've worked hard. You've eaten right. You've gotten your water in. Maurice, you're doing the right things. So I'm going to eat a little bit of this excess adipose or body fat,
Hmm.
and I'm going to use that as some of the excess fuel to top you up today.
Yeah.
Now, that's a great place to be. Zone
Yeah.
two training actually shows our bodies are very good at burning fat as fuel if the right conditions are created,
Yeah.
you know? And so that's what was happening for you. You just weren't getting enough calories. So your body was in this, oh my gosh, feast or famine. We're in a famine right now. We got to retain whatever we got,
Yep.
especially body fat because it's high. Now this is, I don't want to get super technical, but calories per gram are important to recognize when we talk about macronutrients. We've got protein, we got fats, we got carbohydrates. Simple.
Yep.
Carbohydrates and proteins for every gram provides us with 4 calories. Every gram of fat, however, is 9 calories. So you can imagine gram for gram, if we
Hmm.
want energy in, if we can learn how to harness fat as fuel, we actually get double the bang for the buck from an energy standpoint. The issue is that most of us don't teach our bodies how to burn fat. We're always in storage mode.
Right.
But our bodies are very good at regulating body fat and regulating fat. It wants to be in a healthy state,
Yep.
but we have an ability of sort of overriding that, if we will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. that answer the question? Does that make sense? Like, again, I don't want to get in the deep end on this because I
Yep.
know some
Yep.
people are gonna be like, "Oh boy, this is over my head. I don't know what we're talking
Yeah.
about here."
Well, for me, I can the simplification was I needed to fuel my body,
Yeah,
and by not, it thought that it needed to store every little thing, particularly
yeah,
fat,
David.
so it
Yep.
wouldn't it that tightness or these things that I was wanting by it was actually the opposite effect. It was
Yeah,
hanging on to absolutely everything because it didn't trust me
that's
to give
right.
it
Yeah.
what it needed. It didn't trust me. So this, go back to the lab analogy, it's pay attention. And so I was fortunate enough to have a community and to have an expert to be like, dude, I am paying attention. This isn't making sense.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, this is what's happening. Okay. It's like permission to eat more. Thank you. Under
And
the
your
right.
calorie burn after looking at your MyFitnessPal diary, it is way better. You're getting more calories in and you're still exerting yourself. So the mix is much better now,
Yeah.
right? Like the window is not as large, or like the disparity between the 2 points, right?
Yeah.
Like again, if there's too much of a disparity, it sounds like we might lose a lot of weight. But keep in mind, if we're retaining things like excess calories, we're typically also retaining excess fluids. And it's the fluids you talked about, the tightness feel. Like when we're
Mm-hmm.
really inflamed or swollen, we don't feel as tight because we have a lot of excess water around our joints and our tissues, and we're inflamed. It doesn't feel very good, right? Things aren't moving quite as well. If anyone's ever watched The Biggest Loser as an example, the first 2 weeks, it's crazy to see that kind of weight loss. A lot of people think, wow, they're losing so much fat in the first. It's not fat. Okay. They're losing a bit of fat for sure because they're starving those people and overworking them. I mean, it's like full on famine mode. However, in the first couple of weeks, why there's such a huge amount of weight being released is actually the water retention being released. They're peeing out all that excess fluid that they've been packing around with them. You know, most people like they recognize that their weight, if they weigh themselves every day at the same time, there's a huge fluctuation, maybe 3 to 5 pounds every day. It's
Yeah.
like I didn't eat enough calories to put on an extra 3 to 5 pounds yesterday.
Mm.
Where did that come from? Believe me, it's a combination and often a lot of water retention. You know, my female clients, they once a month there's a period of time where they go through this sort of process, right? And they feel a little bit more swollen. They feel a little like they're retaining more water. Myself, I recognize that too in my own life. I have an autoimmune condition, and I also recognize these sort of cycles that I go through. It's good. There's nothing wrong with it. This is normal. But it's also recognizing that not every day you're going to feel optimal.
Yeah.
That's not the goal. We just want normal to be closer to feeling good every day.
Mm-hmm.
Not like I have one great day a month and the rest of them suck. No, we want it to be that most of your days are good or great. You have a few days that aren't so much,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really how we're trying to normalize it.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Well, I will provide. I'm going to attempt to provide a little bit of a summary of this great
Oh man, you good luck.
conversation on our physical health. Okay, so we're talking about in the fulfillment project your relationship with your physical body and a few things to remember. So first of all, wherever you are starting, that's the perfect place to start. Right? Wherever you're
Absolutely.
starting, that is the perfect place to start. We've talked about the value of sleep and recovery and how important it is to give your body the recovery periods that it needs to come
Mm,
up and rise again. Some
yes.
days it's not the optimal thing to push through and crush it. And some days when you think you want to quit because it's a little bit hard, your body can handle more than it can take. Ultimately, you're going to be the judge of that by being in great awareness of your body. And if you're fortunate enough to make what Dai says will be one of the best investments to your physical health, to invest in a biometric like Whoop, like an Apple Watch, like a Samsung Health, that's going to tell you what's happening, help you take that awareness to the next level. Pay attention to that data. Next, we're going to talk about food. Really simple. Look at your shopping cart. Got Whole Foods in there or a bunch of boxed stuff. Move towards Whole Foods. The more Whole Foods you can have in your life, the more of a natural regulation system that you're going to have to not overfeed yourself. And also, the more Whole Foods that you have in your life, you're likely going to have to, if it's not within your current habit, do a pattern interrupt, which means process the food yourself. And that's fine. Stick with it. It'll be a one night a week, and you might even like find some joy in it. Throw on a good set list that you like. Throw and watch a show while you do it. Next is water. Okay, we gotta have enough water. We are made of water. Find a water bottle that you love. Find a container that you love. One of the things I wanted to add to your like, I don't like the taste of water. One, just get over it. But I also want to add you can also do like some peppermint or like, a non evasive mint, a cucumber. Put something in there to jazz it up once in a
Lemon,
while.
some
Lemon.
lime. I mean, that works too. Yeah, it's great. Good point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But you got to fuel yourself with that water. And finally, strain. It's as simple as walking every day if that's where you're starting. And then you can move up to add, right, adaptive strain to your body so that your body can do what it was naturally meant and bred to do. It will adapt. And as it adapts, you will get stronger and you'll actually even want it more. So it's like simple as walking and then grow from that and consistency. Consistent strain on your body will make you stronger for years and years and years to come. The final wrap I'm going to put on that is to pay attention to your environment. When you're doing all these little things, create mechanisms that are going to help you get more joy out of them.
Mm.
Every one of these acts that we're talking about are little acts and investments of love towards yourself, towards fulfilling your inner commitments with your body. And sometimes it's hard if you've maybe denied those commitments for a long, long time. You might have some other emotions come up. Let those emotions go to the side and know that what you're doing today is the investment to pay attention to. Those are little acts of love. Surround yourself with little things of joy that remind you that you're doing what's best for you. You should enjoy the heck out of that. Okay, my last question for you, Di, is this is the fulfillment project.
Right. I'm
When you
ready.
think of fulfillment,
Yeah.
when you think of that word for you, what's a fulfilled life for Di Manuel?
Well, that's a great question. And, for me, it's often, am I choosing to live a life that creates more opportunities for happiness, joy, and fulfillment? And when I say fulfillment, it's me feeling aligned with not only the work, but the impact I'm making through the work that I do. And for me, work is play, like I get to help people make changes, and huge changes. And everything, as much as we talk about fitness being pervasive, well, a lot of the things that you and I talk about, Maurice, as it relates to just how we choose to live our lives and the things that we choose to do every day. Well, it's very pervasive in the way that one little decision can impact so many areas of our life all very quickly. But the cool part about that, when we really realize and appreciate that, it works both directions. We can make positive changes just as quickly as we can make negative changes.
Mhm.
And it's just opting to do more of the things that are aligned with this inner feeling of joy, sustained happiness, but also creating those shared opportunities to share a smile, create some impact, have someone go, whoa, I've never done that before. And I get so much fulfillment when I see people do something for the first time that they themselves had a mental belief that they couldn't do that. They couldn't
Mhm.
change that. For me, that's all that's so fulfilling. I love doing that stuff. And I know for the rest of my life, there'll be some capacity of that happening, you know? So,
Yeah,
yeah, does that answer your question? I know it's one of those weird questions because it's really subjective, isn't it? There's no right or
sure
wrong.
is.
It's whatever I believe.
Exactly.
It's fair for me, you know? So, but yeah, that's sort of fulfillment for me.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. And you know what? I know we talked a lot about physical health today because that was our focus. And I just want to also appreciate you for the holistic approach that you take in the
Oh,
work that you
thank you.
do. You
Thank you.
are a physical health expert, but you go so far beyond that. Yes, the whole life manifesto that you wrote, and you're a graduate, right, of the of my body of work with the life inventory assessment. I know
Absolutely
you're
love it.
looking at the whole picture
Whole picture.
and
And I
helping
got to say
people move
thank you,
through.
Maurice, because your tool, the life inventory assessment, dude, it's been a game changer. It used to take me literally a week or two to help people pinpoint some of the things outside of the physical space, fitness wise,
Yeah,
because we all know there's a deep down desire to change physically. Like we know when things aren't feeling right. We wake up in the morning like, gosh, I feel like I need more sleep, but I had 8 hours. What's going on? We know. We start to recognize that performance might be going the opposite, you know, the wrong direction.
yeah,
And that affects a lot of who we are and who we believe we are. And I remember just having to have usually a couple calls to get the clarity to really pinpoint a couple areas to complement and to focus on the work that we were doing to make some physical changes, both nutritionally, but also physically. But it's how it impacts us mentally and emotionally and even spiritually. The tool has been the best for me because I can get through all that now in like an hour with somebody.
yeah,
Dude, it's crazy. Like it's like it's been so good. It's been so good, but also because my clients now have a roadmap to better understand some of the inner workings that they weren't aware of that was affecting them and might have been holding them back from some of the physical changes that they've been wanting to make. You know? So, anyways, I just wanted to, plug you because dude, it's been the best thing that's happened to my business in a long time. So I just
oh,
want to say thank you. Yeah.
amazing. Thank you so much
Uh,
for that. That totally fits with the fulfillment
yeah.
challenge that we have
Yeah.
under play. You can get that in the show notes. And again, just thank you. Thank you for being the person you are and for helping the people that you do in the world. I appreciate you.
Thanks, man. It goes both ways. And for all those listening or watching, hey, if you ever had any questions, I know Maurice can answer most of them. But if there's anything fitness related or anything that we've talked about that you want to deep dive into, please reach out anytime.
And check out Dai's podcast on the 2% solution.
Thanks,
Until next
Maurice.
time, take care.